Welcome to Beat Diabetes. You can see I'm in my real kitchen, not the kitchen backdrop that you often see. And we're going to talk about low-carb tortillas and my absolute favorite low-carb tortilla. Not that I have tasted hundreds of them, but of the ones I have tasted and the ones I've tried, this is the best in my opinion. Now, if you have watched Beat Diabetes for over a year, you may remember I did a video about this particular tortilla before. And you may say, well, Dennis, you're just repeating yourself, and I guess I have to plead guilty, but I have found some modifications that make it a better deal yet. So I'm kind of excited about that and just want to pass along the information. This hopefully won't take too long. But the wonderful thing about this tortilla, I call it a Lupin flour tortilla, but the reality is it's actually got more almond flour in it than Lupin flour. So it's going to take a half cup of almond flour and then a third of a cup of Lupin flour and then 1 tablespoon of xanthan gum. And you're going to throw in a little bit of water. There'll be a recipe down below. It makes a fantastic tortilla. But you have to kind of fine-tune some of these recipes, and I've learned that there were some things I did initially that I could have done better and made this a better recipe, made this a better cooking project. So we're going to talk about them, and I think you're going to be blessed and helped if you can stand Lupin. Now, some people have written to me and said, I can't take Lupin. Lupin has a lot of fiber. This particular brand of Lupin says it has 14 grams of carbs per quarter cup, but 12 of those grams are fiber. So it's almost pure fiber. It's not quite, but it's close to pure fiber. And that's good, and yet for some people that's not so good. What's good about it is most of that fiber is not going to affect blood sugar. And it's going to keep your spike low, and it certainly did mine. What's not so good is that for some people, they can't handle that much fiber, or sometimes you have to work up to it. So we'll see. Right now, I'm going to take you to the original recipe, and then we'll get into the modifications that I've made that make this better still. Making these tortillas is the essence of simplicity. There are only 3 ingredients, plus salt and water. In a medium bowl, add 1/2 cup of almond flour. Then add 1/3 cup of Lupin flour. Add 1 tablespoon of xanthan gum, and then give it 3 or 4 shakes of salt. Stir the mixture thoroughly. Then pour in 1/3 cup of water using a liquid measurement, and then stir it well until it becomes a lump of dough. Form the dough into a ball and then divide it into 4 pieces. Round these 4 pieces into balls. Place a ball of dough between 2 parchment papers. You can buy parchment rounds that are perfect for this. I used a tortilla press to flatten each ball into a tortilla shape. You may want to give the parchment rounds a light spray with cooking spray so that those tortillas don't stick to the paper and come all apart and get messy on you when you try to remove them. Set a burner on your stove to just below high heat and give it a few minutes to get hot. Then place the tortillas on a pan for 35 to 45 seconds. Flip it over and give the other side another 40 seconds or so and remove. And voila, you have a wonderful, tasty, and flexible tortilla. The first modification that I've made to the old style of recipe is I made 2 batches. I quickly learned that these things go fast with me around because I typically eat 1 every night and or 1 every noontime, but usually night. And even though Benedicta doesn't eat these much, still, just with me eating them, if the original batch would have made 4, but that's the other mod, and that is I don't cut them into 4 pieces anymore. The batch that I make, I cut into 3 pieces. That 4-piece division was way too small. It made too small of a tortilla. It was like a little mini tortilla. So I cut it into 3 pieces. If you're going to make it for a pizza base, I'd say cut it into 2 pieces. Anyway, that's one of the mods. The other thing is, after you've made it, I'm going to stir this around. So you make a kind of a dough, and then the next step is to take it out with your hands. You heard that right, with your hands, and roll it into a big ball and place it on something like this, a cutting block. And here's the next thing that you have to be careful of. This is what I've learned, but let me take it out. Okay, so I've made it into a ball, and the next thing to be careful about, my little advice to you, if you're going to make these and make them well, is you're going to get frustrated if when you take this out and make it into a ball, it becomes sticky on your hands or has a kind of a wet feel. You don't want that. You want it to have more of a dry feel. So if you take it out and your hands are getting gummy and sticky and it just doesn't feel very good, you're thinking, I've got to wash my hands off. This is too sticky. What you do is you take a little bit of the almond flour or the Lupin flour or both, and you just sprinkle it over there, and then you just work it through the dough until it no longer has a wet feel. If it takes 2 or 3 tablespoons or teaspoons, you just do whatever it takes until it has more of a dry feel. You still want it to be flexible and you want it into a ball, but you do not want the stickiness. Why not? Because it'll come apart when you press it into a tortilla. So you gotta get rid of that sense of wetness and stickiness and get it a little on the dry side. It'll make a good tortilla pretty much every time. At least that's how it works for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut it into 3 pieces, not 4, but only 3 to make a little bigger tortillas. And I'm going to take my tortilla press. Now, if you don't have one, obviously you can order one if Amazon delivers to you. If not, you can just use a rolling pin. But you're going to need some kind of parchment paper or wax paper to put over the top and bottom as you roll it out. And you get it into a ball, and then this ball can make 3 decent-sized tortillas, or it could make a couple of pizza bases. So let me go ahead and cut it up into 3 relatively equal pieces. Well, I'm going to quickly go over the modifications, and then I want to share with you the reasons I just think this is such a great recipe, and it is my favorite, my preferred low-carb tortilla recipe. So the modifications, well, again, make 2 batches at a time. It's just too much time to pull all that stuff out and stir it around, and then you just only end up with 3 tortillas. But if you make a double batch, you get 6. That's probably going to do you for a pound of hamburger, maybe 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. So 2 batches at a time will save you a lot of trouble and make it easier on you. Secondly, when you take it out and you roll it into a ball, that first initial big ball before you separate it into 3 smaller balls, make sure it's not gummy or kind of a wet feel to it. Add a little extra flour and keep working it in until it doesn't feel gummy or sticky. You'll save yourself a lot of trouble, and it will peel right off that parchment paper a lot easier. Third, break the recipe into 3 pieces. Again, not 4. That's way too small of a tortilla. In fact, 2 might work even better, but I'm not sure those rounds that I use could handle broken into 2 pieces. It might be too big for them. But at any rate, and not 4. 4 is too small. And when you put the dough on the parchment paper, the round, on the tortilla press it down real nice, right in the center of it all, because I found that if you just put it on there as a big round ball, yeah, you can flatten it out, but it'll end up going to one side or the other, and it'll come off the edge of your parchment paper. So put it down in the center, smash it down pretty good with your hand first, and then go ahead and use the tortilla press for the rest. Again, if you don't have a tortilla press, or you don't want to buy one, or you can't get one, just use an old-fashioned rolling pin and some wax paper or parchment paper. You'll be good. Now, one thing to remember, when you're heating up that pan, get it nice and hot. It should be at least medium heat, if not a little over medium heat. And no oil. The oil messes up the tortilla, so no oil. You're just going to put that baby on there as it is, and 30 seconds, it's probably going to be done on one side, 30 seconds on the other. Boom, you've got yourself a tortilla. That means if you make 6 out of a double batch like I am recommending, 6 minutes time and you're done. So while the thing is cooking its little 30 seconds, you're going ahead and making the second tortilla. And while that one's cooking, you're making the third, and the whole thing moves so fast. And 6 minutes time and you are good to go. Now, obviously, even with the double batch, there's still time involved. That first day, it's going to take you some time. Now, when I have these, my normal food that I enjoy eating with them is basically a taco. So I fry up some hamburger, put some of the mixture on there, the taco mix, so that it has a little bit more of a Mexican flavor. And then I add cheese and lettuce and tomato and put some picante sauce over the top. It makes a great tortilla. The first day, it's a lot of work. You're making the hamburger, you're making the tortillas. You're probably looking at 25, 30 minutes from start to finish. But after that, you're done. After that, boom. Every night after that, you just take out a tortilla, maybe warm it up a few seconds, 12 seconds in the microwave, warm up your hamburger that's left over from the night before, and put that on there and all the other ingredients, and you're good to go. So you go from kind of a difficult day the first day, there's some work involved. I'm not going to kid you. But after that, if you make 6 at a time, you got 1 day of work and 5 days of rest, so that ain't too bad. Now, let's get to the question of why do I like these so much? Well, obviously, I like them because I like them. They taste good. But first point is they have almost no carbs. I mean, yeah, they have carbs, but they're all fiber, and it's not going to affect your blood sugar, most likely. And the second reason is, when you think about it, the store-bought low-carb tortillas, they can work for many of us, not everybody. Some people say none of them work for me, but oftentimes they work, and they do seem to work for me, particularly my favorite brand. But they've got so many ingredients, all kinds of chemical-sounding ingredients. I mean, I haven't even counted, but just too many ingredients. It's not natural. It's too processed, and it could be a problem. With these, I mean, you've got basically 3 ingredients: the almond flour, the Lupin flour, and the xanthan gum. And then you throw in a little salt and water, and boom, you're done. You don't even need an egg. So such a more natural tortilla than the kind you're buying at the store. So a lot of people are afraid of super processed, ultra processed foods. Well, there's not much ultra processing going on when you make these yourself. And I find, generally speaking, the low carb foods we make ourselves are just better all around, and definitely better on our glucose spikes than the kind you buy at the store. Now, another reason I like these is the flavor of the Lupin. I mentioned earlier there's more almond flour than there is Lupin, but you can definitely taste and smell that Lupin flavor and that Lupin aroma. And here's the thing. The Lupin bean, and lupins are beans, it smells like corn. And you swear you're eating a corn tortilla, and I like corn tortillas. And the smell is like a corn tortilla, and the taste is like one, except almost better. I really like these better than the store-bought tortillas. The only negative I can say about them is the time involved the first day, but after that, you're good to go. So I just think they're great. And if only I could just snap my finger and have a dozen Lupin flour tortillas. Okay, well, let me close by saying this. You know, there are some keto foods you try and you like moderately, but you're not just thrilled with them. And so you're always looking for a new recipe. You're going to try this, you're going to try that to see if you can improve on what you've already got. But when it comes to these Lupin flour tortillas, they are so good. I'm not looking anymore. I'm not going to go through a dozen more recipes. Yeah, I'm sure there are all kinds of low-carb or keto tortilla recipes around. I know there are. But these are so good, it's like, why should I look? In a way, it's kind of like a good wife. You find a good wife like I have, and it's like, I'm not looking around. I'm well satisfied with the wife I have. And not to compare a tortilla with a wife, but tortillas are kind of, these Lupin flour tortillas to me, and I can't say how you'll like them, but I can just say for me, They are so good. And now that I've learned to do double batches, and I can make 6 at a time, in not much more time than it takes to make 3, it's like, well, I can just see myself doing this the rest of my life. Kind of like, again, like a good wife. You just say, well, why should I look around? I can see myself being with her the rest of my years. And that's how I feel about Lupin flowers, but to a smaller degree. Benedict, I'm not saying that they can compare with you by any means. If you've recently been diagnosed with diabetes and you've just discovered this channel, let me recommend that you go to our Uploads page, which will give you access to every diabetic video we've posted since we began. As you work your way through all our videos, I believe you'll find the help you need. A link to our Uploads page is in the description.